Hello and welcome here as we're looking over now the next issue in Diehard Gamefan. So I've been doing a little series here as we're going through. My plan is to go through all the issues here for Diehard Gamefan, and so we are up to Volume 1, Issue 11. So this is looks like it was $4.95 at this time. And so it looks, just looking at the cover here, we are starting to get into the I mean, we've already talked about the FM Towns Marty, but now we're starting to get some more insight on the Atari Jaguar and the Panasonic 3DO. So at this particular time, so this would have been in late 1993, there was some excitement behind these systems here because, again, we weren't quite sure of how that generation was going to pan out. And by that, I mean like the fifth generation. And so what we were initially seeing of, just the casuals, right, and screenshots and all of these systems, I mean, it looked pretty impressive. And then from what these journalists and all were able to see firsthand, I mean, it was pretty impressive. And so I can only imagine that, as people were looking at this stuff and all that, these systems seemed like they were really going to be changing the industry and all that. In hindsight, both the the Panasonic 3DO and especially the Jaguar, well, they failed, but they were the first main ones that were out of the gate that started to show us what 32-bit technology could be. And well, I guess you can say 64-bit, although the way Atari went about that was not entirely accurate and all. There's a lot of documentaries out there as far as how the Atari Jaguar was able to get away with calling it a 32-bit system. I mean, I'm sorry, a 64-bit system, because it looks like it technically could be, but it was more in line with like a 32-bit system and all. It's just, I think it had like, I could be wrong on this, but I think it had like two kind of like processors inside that were 32-bit. So when combined together, it can technically be like a 64-bit, but it was very hard to program for, and ultimately nobody really knew how to do it. And then again, the Jaguar kind of fizzled out pretty quickly. So technically, I guess it can be a 64-bit system, but you never really felt it when you were playing it. When you see the games on it. But like I said, it was. I feel though that those systems were important because there was a lot of systems that were starting to come out that were being considered like 32-bit systems. That helped pave the way for what would eventually come in that generation. Because once even the ill-fated Saturn, it still had some good stuff on there, and then of course the PlayStation and eventually the Nintendo 64. But those initial systems, though, that came out before it, like an year or two late before them, it started laying the groundwork for what 3D gaming could be, right? Because this is where we really started shifting from 2D to 3D gaming. And those first initial games were rough. Visually at first, I'm sure it was impressive to see. But when you go back to them and all, they're very rough. But they had to start somewhere. And so, if anything, I feel that they have an importance to the video game industry for that reason. There is just how they paved the way to start helping developers figure out how to do gameplay in a 3D space, because it's much different than doing in a 2D space. And I can only imagine the complexities that all came with, right? Controlling a character in a 3D space, thinking about level designs and so many other factors. I'm sure, obviously I'm not a game developer or anything, but I can just imagine, right? And just all the different things that would come, with creating a game in a 3D space. But anyways, here, so that's the main feature of this magazine here, is that they're calling it Battle of the Super Systems. So game fans first look at the 64-bit Jaguar, plus more on the incredible 3DO. Then we got some Sonic stuff here also. So we had Sonic Spinball, Sonic Chaos, and Sonic CD. And then looks like for the Super Nintendo, we're looking at Empire Strikes Back, Sunset Riders, and Aladdin. And for the Sega CD, we had Dragon's Lair, Stellar Fire, Thunderstrike, Lethal Enforcers, and also for the Sega side of things, so we had Street Fighter 2 Special Edition, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, Aladdin, and Socket. Let's get to it here. So we got this thing of Gauntlet, which I still want to check out this game. I hear so much about the music of this game. Supposedly it's really impressive for a Genesis card. if anything. So I might try to check that out at some point. All right, but here we go with the editorial zone here. So we got the team here. Looks like, do we have a few new people? I don't quite recall, but all right. So welcome to issue 11. Putting this one together was an interesting and exciting experience. We are truly entering the next generation. I'm not talking about a mild upgrade, but an entirely new genre to explore. It didn't really dawn on me until I saw the first few Atari Jaguar shots. I was, I was, and am excited about the incredible 3DO, but too many simulations and learning games kept me from believing this might replace our Super Nintendos or Genesis. Not to mention the high price tag. When we talk 3DO, we're talking about an entirely new approach to a wider and more varied audience. But when you see the games in our new Jaguar's domain section, you're going to want the Jaguar. Bad. Forget any preconceived notions you may have harvested in the past. The way that Atari has planned this attack is brilliant. No one ever really knew what was up, and now all of a sudden here it is. Just around the corner is a 64-bit system with ready games at an unbelievable price. You aren't going to see any learning games or point and clicks either. This is a game system. Price with Price with Sega and Nintendo user in mind. Many third-party companies may say that Atari has burned too many bridges, but let's face it, folks. The bottom line in any business is money, and if the Jaguar sells as good as I think it will, many third parties will develop titles. I guarantee it. No executive is going to say, "I know we could make a ton of money still, but I'm still mad at those guys." Remember, we are in a totally different industry when the Lynx came out. Nintendo no longer pulls the strings, crossing licenses is the norm, and with several formats present in the market, developers have more freedom than ever before. I think the Jaguar will get a good support. Just look at the games in this issue, and you be the judge. All I know is that a hardcore gamer, judging from what I've seen, um, all I know as a hardcore gamer, judging from what I've seen, Nintendo and Sega can start worrying along with everyone and as a conservator along with everyone else. America is about to make a comeback. Of course, Sega has a Saturn 32-bit system ready to go, which will undoubtedly be a huge success, but it won't be available into mid to late 1994. Nintendo is introducing a 64-bit monster in late 95, and the 3DO should be out by the time you read this. And let's not forget about the Hudson's 32-bit Iron Man, scheduled for a Japan-only release at this time. And the supposed SNK CD-ROM is rumored to be out in Japan in May 1994. Things are about to get very exciting, but did Atari get the jump on everyone, or what? Next, I would like to talk about how we will be reviewing these new 32 and 64-bit games. Remember, we rate games against other similar titles on what systems they're on. So when we give, let's say, Total Eclipse a 90%, that doesn't mean we think Sylphid or Star Fox is better. We're just rating it according to the new standards. We are entering into an entirely new class of software, and we will do our best to paint a clear picture so that you can choose your software wisely. Change can be scary, especially if you just bought a system that you thought was state of the art. But the entrance of 32 and 64-bit technology is not going to make our 16-bit systems obsolete. Sega and Nintendo are not going to abandon the millions of people that own their current hardware. They will simply grow into more divisions and several teams working on multiple formats, such like Sega's multimedia studio, which was created solely for CD-ROM development. Also, keep in mind that great graphics don't necessarily make a great game. The Genesis and Super Nintendo have been around for quite a while, so the programmers are comfortable with the development systems and just now working to their full potential. I'm sure that the best Super Nintendo and Genesis games have yet to be made. 16-bit is and will remain alive and well. Let's face it, this is no longer a hobby where one system is going to set the standards or the best. Many systems will be introduced and supported, each at its own price point with its own target audience in mind. It will be up to you which ones to buy. All I know is that the choices are getting better and better. And to all you kids out there, who was wondering what to do for a career, we're going to need more programmers. Funny because at the time that was kind of like what I was, reading stuff like this and all that, right? And all that's what I thought I wanted to get into, and I did for a while. Try to get into like video games and all to some extent, but well, that never happened. But let's see. Yeah, so just kind of looking at these here, looks like we got some good stuff to go over here. Prepare yourself, Mortal Kombat. So that was in full gear, right? As the games had just released. And we got some secrets here. Looks like for Sylphid, Street Fighter 2, Shinobi 3. Some combos here for Street Fighter. Oh, pretty sure these combos are still applicable to these games. And we got some dual turbo controllers from Acclaim. Can't say if they were any good. But here we go with Viewpoint. So for Skid's pick, I don't like to run with the pack, but when it comes to a 24 meg Sega version of Street Fighter 2, I get weak knees. Excuse me. Sergeant Gamer says, Aerial is my choice this month, both platforms. With gameplay that just won't quit and an addictive quality found in only the best games, it is a sure bet to be a contender for Game of the Year honors. Kaylee's pick, let's see. It was a tough choice, but when the smoke cleared, I found myself parked in front of my Super NES. Just me and ActRaiser 2. And the Inquirer, you already know what my pick is going to be. Street Fighter 2, of course, the version even surprised me. I'm not easily impressed. Okay, so then, so Street Fighter 2 on the Sega Genesis was, also a big deal too. But there's Socket here, which was a fun little platformer. I had fun with this game here, and again, this is during the period where we were just renting a bunch of Sega Genesis games. But let's see, I'll read one of the reviews here for this one. So Socket is an excellent action platform game that reminds me of a cross between Sonic and Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck series from Sega. Vic Talkie has done an excellent job of creating the original character with an electrifying personality that has play value up the yin yang. A few irritating sound effects, but great nonetheless. So yeah, definitely with the sound effects. Basically, so you collect like these lightning bolts, which are sort of like Mario's coins or Sonic's rings, and when you pick them up, I do remember it has a bit of a kind of a grating sound effect and all. But other than that, though, the game is really fun. I mean, if you like Sonic games and all, this is definitely a fun sort of clone, but that plays pretty good. But Aerial the Acrobat. So here's a game that I played somewhat recently with the release that came out on the Switch, and it's I don't know, it's a little different. I had a hard time getting into it, but it seems, at least at this time, it had. I would say that it's one of those somewhat more popular platforming games of these characters that ultimately were just around for this generation and then never made a comeback. So, for example, Aerial here. So Aerial is an instant classic that is a throwback to the early days of video games. It is not about a hit movie license or special effects of the week. Area is just pure creative game design and play that is challenging and addictive with many different obstacles to overcome. Thanks to Sunsoft to having the courage of to hang their hat on an original idea and complete their vision. But yeah, but it seems like I mean, it's like I said, I maybe I need to give it more of a chance and all, but looks like it was fairly popular then though. Dash and Desperados, we talked about the game a few episodes back, so it looks like it's a 2-player game, but seems like it's pretty fun. But Zombies Ate My Neighbors on the Sega Genesis. So how can you argue with 55 levels of terror? I love this kind of game. It's long, has great music, huge bosses, and it's 2-player. I also like the horror theme. More companies should explore this great category. Shine the flower, guys. I want chainsaws, Chucky dolls, and 40-foot killer babies. Yeah, so I mean, it's still a great game on the Sega Genesis. It just seems like overall the Super Nintendo, this is one where it, had slightly better graphics and all that, and just overall a better experience. Then there's this Poltergeist game. I never messed around really with this game, so I'm not too exactly sure what it's about, other than that you play some kind of a poltergeist character and just haunting people, like I don't know, like a family in a house or something to that effect is my understanding of it. But Street Fighter 2 Special Edition. So let's read these here. So Skid gave it a 96. So finally, a Sega version. Now I can play a lightning fast 24 meg Street Fighter 2 with a controller that doesn't look like a milk bone. The music and voice may not be as good as the Super Nintendo, but with the Sega 6-button controller, the combos are effortless and the graphics are superb. The tournament mode is also a welcome feature. So Sergeant Gamer said, the long wait is over for Genesis owners. The 24 meg Street Fighter 2 Special Edition is here, and it has been worth the wait. Take everything that Capcom did in both the Super Nintendo Street Fighter 2 games, and that's what you get in Special. The speed, the moves, the graphics, boss versus boss, and more. The only meaningful difference is the music, which is not up to the Super Nintendo version standards. Genesis owners, it's time to go shopping. Street Fighter 2 for the Sega Genesis is almost perfect. Almost. Using the Super NES Hyper or Turbo Hyper as the benchmark, Sega Street Fighter 2 has the graphics, full screen no less, and the perfect gameplay. I do, however, prefer the music and sound on the Super Nintendo. I still can't believe this is the Genesis. So after playing this version extensively, all I have to say is buy it. This 24 meg monster is as close to the arcade as you can get. Everything from the playability to control is perfect. The only thing that could have been better was the music. So my take on it, from what I recall, so basically, comparing this one to, let's say, the Street Fighter 2 Hyper Turbo Edition that had just come out a little bit ago. So the graphics are better on the Super Nintendo in terms that they're just a little bit more. The color is better. The colors don't look quite as washed out. Again, that's just, the Super Nintendo just has more color on them. Other than that, though, I mean, I'd have to see them side by side again and all, but I do think that, that the sprites are roughly about the same. Maybe there's a few different animations and all that one has over the other. Again, that'd be like really getting down to the nitty gritty of everything. But that was the main difference, though, is that the graphics weren't quite as good as far as like the color on the Genesis, but the control was better though on the Genesis if you had the 6-pad controller. Because if you had just a 3-pad, the 3-button controller, it was a nightmare to play because you had to, so the 3 buttons would be, I forgot what the default was, if it was your punch buttons or kick buttons, and then you had to press the start button to switch over to like the other one. So that's just not really fun. But if you got the 6-button controller, then at that point now you have the button layout as the arcade, right? So that 6-button controller from the Sega Genesis it's still to this day one of my favorite controllers of all time when it comes to like 2D like games and all. It was just perfect for fighting games and all, and I definitely, mainly for that reason, there's why I much preferred the Sega Genesis version. It was just much more funner to play that way. Because even on the Super Nintendo, yes, it has 6 buttons, but 2 of them are shoulder buttons, and it's just not the most intuitive if you're trying to play a fighting game like this here. I mean, it's definitely serviceable for sure. It's just that you definitely got more out of it if you got the 6-button controller. So it is another investment you would have to make, but it definitely made the difference if you were a hardcore Street Fighter player at the time. As far as the music goes and all, I don't recall if it was this one or maybe if it was on the Super Street Fighter 2 version that came out, a few years later. But I do recall, I think I actually prefer the Genesis music over the Super Nintendo one. It just sounded more accurate to the arcade as far as like it just felt more bassy. Like that's one thing that the Super Nintendo struggled with. I feel like sometimes the sound, well, I mean, it had very quality sound that it could do. It just didn't have the oomph to it that I felt that a lot of Genesis games did. And this is one example. Again, I don't know if it was this one or the Super Street Fighter 2, but that's what I felt I remember about him. The sound effects are fine and all for me, but the voice definitely takes a hit. And the voice is very gargly and scratchy and all. I mean, it's when you hear the Hadouken and all, it's like, it sounds bad. And that is one area where definitely the Super Nintendo had that one there, because the Super Nintendo one, it feels sometimes that the voices can seem a little muffled and a little bit of an echoey effect, but much better than what the Genesis could do. I mean, there was a few games that the Genesis actually had pretty clear voice, but there was a lot of more, I think, where that I can recall that the voices, like voice samples on Genesis games, were just not that great. And Street Fighter Two was probably one of the more popular ones of that there. Um, but either way, though, like I said, right, it was still an excellent Street Fighter Two game and was a reason to celebrate for Genesis owners back in the day. I mean, I remember I was really happy when this game came out, and it was where my love for Street Fighter Two really developed because I'd been playing it a little bit in the arcades, but again, just a little bit that I could play it there. And I think we might have rented it for the Super Nintendo when my friend of ours would bring it over. But when we got the Genesis one, I don't know recall if we bought the game and all, but I remember renting it, and that's where I really got into this game and all. And for a while, it was a bit of an obsession of mine. And it started with this game right here, the Street Fighter 2 Special Edition on the Sega Genesis, and with the 6-button controller. That made the huge difference there. But yeah, excellent port though. But then we got this H3 Thunderstrike game. So I wanted to shed a little bit of light on this game here, just because I feel like this game, a lot of the games on the Sega CD were very overlooked and all, but this is one though that I really felt was a really good game, and it started pushing the envelope for what 3D games could be. And so I'll just kind of read a bit here. They can probably explain it better than I can. So Skids gave it a 93%. So here's another great game to help save the fledgling Sega CD. It won't be dry much longer. H3 Thunderstrike not only has great graphics with rotating sprites, awesome scaling, and first-rate music and sound effects, but it is extremely long and fun to play, just like a CD should be. Now, where's my Wonder Dog sequel? That's just wait with their Wonder Dog. Kind of cracks me up. Let's see, Sergeant Gamer, right? Sergeant Gamer, yeah. So he gave it a 93, and so Core should write a textbook on how to design Sega CD games. Wonder Dog, Jaguar XJ220, and now H3 Thunderstrike. They've done it again. Thunderstrike has first-person scaling environment under your control that is breathtaking. Just wait until you annihilate a ship on the Panama Canal or take out an oil rig on an enemy-controlled river. Ah, memories. Let's see, and then Kaylee. So he gave it a 92. And chopper simulations aren't usually my thing, so you can imagine the level of skepticism I had when I first booted up Thunderstrike for the Sega CD. After about 5 nanoseconds, I changed my mind completely. The 3D effects are outstanding, and you have the ability to go wherever you want. The music is great, and the intermissions alone are worth the price of admission. And then the Inquirer, finally, so he gave it a 90%. So he said, this is a great game. I'm sorry. Here's a game that Desert Strike veterans can really get into. I like the way Desert Strike or Thunderhawk is sort of a Desert Strike Street Talents combo. Plus, there are tons of levels, great hardware scaling, lots of digitized enemies, and one kick butt soundtrack that is sure to get nominated for Music of the Year. Perfection. Yeah, so it really, I mean, nowadays, again, right, obviously 3D games from like the 5th generation haven't aged that well for a lot of people, let alone, whatever 3D games we had on the 4th generation. But again, it's one of those things, if you were around in the time and all, there had to be baby steps, to move forward, right? With a lot of the cool shit that we have nowadays for 3D. And this is kind of where it started. And, but even then, I mean, I can go back to this game and all. And actually, you know what? I might fire it up a little bit later today, just really quick and just to check it out, because it is a great game. I had a lot of fun with it there and all. And it's still pretty impressive to see, what the CD technology could do at the time. And it was one of the few games of this on the Sega CD, along with things like Sylpheed, that really showed what the Sega CD could be, right? It was really impressive 3D graphics and all. Took advantage of the hardware. Has some cool music, because the music is kind of like almost like 80s rock and all, but it's pretty cool. I enjoyed the soundtrack to it, and very immersive and all. And yeah, it is a fairly lengthy game. I remember it took me a while to beat this game and all back then, but I had a lot of fun with it. We bought this game back then, and it was definitely one that was in the Sega CD tray for quite a while, as I definitely enjoyed this game quite a bit. But let's see, we have Lethal Enforcers. I never really got into this game, but it's like a light gun game where, the digitized graphics. So again, this is kind of more of the stuff that the Sega CD was trying to do more with full motion video and all. But seems like it wasn't that half bad though. But ActRaiser 2 on the Super Nintendo. Here's a game that I really wanted to play because it looked really awesome. Just looking at the screenshots and all, I thought that the game looked really impressive and all. And I never, at the time, I hadn't played ActRaiser, but I remember hearing that it was a really good game, and I was also really interested in hearing Yuzo Koshiro's soundtrack on a Super Nintendo that was more like classical, orchestrated music, where his what I've been used to more was, his soundtracks on a Sega Genesis, which is a much different sound chip and more kind of techno-y dance music. And so, because I remember hearing that ActRaiser had really good music too. So I remember we rented this game and all, and it is difficult. It is a hard game. I do recall that, and the music was pretty decent though on it and all. But I remember I wasn't as impressed with this game as I thought I would be. But again, I just played it. We rented it one time, played it for a bit, and that was about it. So I kind of want to give this game another shot nowadays. Where I'm a bit older, and all, and have more sense of what I'm experiencing, I guess, and see if it's something that maybe I can still get into. But let's see, I'll just read the high review here. So this guy here. So let's see. I waited 2 years for this game, and NX did not disappoint. I have played this game quite a bit now, and I really think that we will have to move up to 32-bit to experience better sound and graphics. My one small complaint is a lack of animation on the main character, but overall, ActRaiser 2 takes action gaming on the Super NES to its limits. I gotta try this game. I feel like I would like it because I was really excited to play it back then. But again, I was 13 years old, so and it is a bit of a challenging game, and also it might have been a little bit too much for my dumb ass back then. Um, let's see. So ActRaiser on the Super Nintendo. So it looks like more or less the Super Nintendo and the Genesis versions are more or less the same from what it sounds like. The Sunset Riders. So this one was more closer to the arcade experience than the Genesis one. I played the Genesis one and I had fun with that one, but I feel like if I played this one, I would like it more. The game is overall, it's kind of like a running gun in a way, and I mean with a Western theme, and so I think it'd be like just a fun pick up and play game, right? And all, but I think I'll play it on the Super Nintendo if I ever get around to playing this game at some point again. But then there's Asterix, so some kind of like a platforming puzzle game, my understanding, right? Yeah, okay. Dream TV, not sure what that is. But Aladdin on the Super Nintendo. So this was done by Capcom, and so they've been really great at making Disney games, right? So this is just kind of another one in line with that. And let's see. So I'll just read one review here. So Capcom has always done these type of games incredibly well, and they've done it again here. Besides successfully capturing the look and feel of Disney's splendid cartoon, the programmers have managed to make an excellent action platform game as well, full of vivid color and great play mechanics. So you get the best of both. I've never really played the Aladdin one on the Super Nintendo, um, but I definitely prefer the Genesis one more. But yeah, I mean, it seems like it's still a good game, though. I mean, it's not like it's a bad game. It's just the Genesis one was really good. It's just and so I think it outshone this one. Um, but yeah, I mean, it looks like it's still pretty cool though. I want to try this game at some point. But Ren and Stimpy, so they had their Super Nintendo game here. Looks like a Ren and Stimpy idiots. Anybody remember Ren and Stimpy? Remember those close-ups that they used to do of like something really gross, and they had like a lot more detailed like drawing to it and all and color, and it was just really grotesque and all. I was like, oh god, that looks disgusting. But that was kind of the show's appeal, poop and fart jokes and gross things and all that, gross antics and all were definitely part of the 90s humor, with things like, with Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead. And also, this was right in the thick of all that there. But I remember, I used to like watching Ren and Stimpy, though. That was kind of a funny cartoon. I never got into it because I think the Super Nintendo had a few games. I don't think I got into any. I didn't play any of those. But the Genesis one had one that I can recall, and that one actually I ended up really enjoying, which I'm thinking they'll cover in one of these later issues. But yeah, I never did get into the Super Nintendo one. HC Thunderstruck. Yeah, I want to give this game a little whirl later today. I really enjoyed this game. Bring back some memories. But here are the Adventures of Monitor. So they're continuing their thing here. Looks like this one is Kid Fan, sort of the main character in this. Looks like it's they're kind of doing this because of that Poltergeist or that Haunting game that was in the review section earlier. So they give you a chance to finish it. So like I would assume like readers would write in and suggest an ending. That's kind of cool. So you want to be an artist? Here's your chance. Okay, so it's like a promotion. That's cool. I don't know. Maybe this game. The concept sounds interesting. Like I said, I just haven't really felt like I needed to give it a shot, but maybe I'll give it a shot at some point. All right, but here we go with the most wanted top 10s. I'm not gonna continue reading these here and all, and you could just kind of see them there for yourself. But I'll just do so. The number one was Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the Super Nintendo for the top 10, and most wanted was Sonic City on the Sega CD. Were they still giving away the same thing, more or less? Yeah. Well, now just a Genesis or a Link because it looks like they blacked out something there. A match made in hell. What is this for? Coming in November. What is this for? Virgin Games. November around this time. Oh, I'm gonna just kind of because this gun I think looks somewhat familiar. I'm gonna say RoboCop versus the Terminator. I think that's what this is because I know Virgin Games made it. I think. But an interview with Vic Taki or Vic Takei or however you pronounce that. But yeah, they had a few cool little things here. So they had that Socket game, and then they had this Mazine Saga game, which this is another kind of sleeper hit on the Sega Genesis. I enjoyed this game. The animation is really impressive on this game here, as you can see kind of on the screenshot up here. But yeah, it looks like they have a few things coming out. So let's see an advertisement here for Chuck 2, Son of Chuck. Simpsons game. And the Sega sector for Sonic CD. Sonic City, still my favorite Sonic game. Did I talk about it already previously? I don't recall. Looks like they're not quite reviewing it yet, so I'll save more an in-depth conversation on Sonic City for later. But for right now, I'll just read their preview here. Let's see. So my favorite time of the year has rolled around once again, Sonic time. Except this time, we're getting more Sonic than ever before with 4 excellent games, which are all unique. Sonic City, Sonic 3, Sonic Chaos, and Sonic Spinball. This is cause for major celebration. It's going to be tough to convey to you just how good Sonic City is. It's like having your wish granted with the perfect game. Sonic City has everything. The greatest action character there is, cartoon quality animation sequences, the best character there is. I'm reading the same thing. The best music ever. Huge levels packed with scrolls and tons of places to explore and things to do. Excuse me. Loads of spectacular color, incredible graphics, perfect playability, and 3D bonus rounds that look and play so good they'd make a great game all on their own. It's the ultimate Sonic Fest or Sonic Feast, and for me, game of the year. This is all new Sonic adventure that consists of 7 stages: Palm Tree Panic, Collision Chaos, Tidal Tempest, Quartz Quadrant, Wacky Workbench, Stardust, Speedway, and the Metallic Madness. With 3 levels in each and a past and future level for the first 2 in every stage. 3 is always 3 is always a boss stage set in the future. That's 49 stages altogether, and 42 of them have 3D bonus rounds. And that's only what we have found so far. When you complete the game, without collecting all the Chaos Emeralds first, you get the best end, When you complete the game without collecting all the Chaos Emeralds first, you get the best ending you have ever seen. Then a planet appears, and you have to get. Oh, and then Robotnik. Oh my god, I can't read. With all this weird LSD trippy background here, it's throwing me off. But let's see. Robotnik laughs, followed by the words "try again" and free the small planet forever. But this game is far from over. Now try to find the rest of Sonic City. There's also a time attack mode that saves your fastest times, just in case you decide to challenge some friends. And a save feature is included, which allows you to save games and store several games. Uh, like the movie Back to the Future, Sonic can travel through time by first passing a sign, which is accompanied by a voice that says "future" or "past," and then reaching and maintaining a high speed, just like Dr. DeLorean's, that transports you to a mirrored version of the level you are on. Let's see. Sorry. Okay, with all new graphics and music, can Sonic change the future? Robotnik's Robot Sonic oh God, had kidnapped your girlfriend, and you must fight Robotnik in the future to get her back. We don't have the full story yet, but that's what happens in the game. For now, all I can tell you is that your investment in a Sega City has finally paid off. With this and still feed, Sega has the best shooter and the best action game of the year for 16-bit. So if you've been holding back on that CD purchase due to the lack of quality software, now is the time, especially with the new model out at a lower price. Sonic City is, for me, what it's all about. It's thoroughly enjoyable from beginning to end, and then you just keep playing again and again, finding new stuff each time. I don't think I'll ever stop. I'll see you next month with a lot more Sonic City. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I love the time traveling aspect of it. If I had one complaint, it's that the level designs are kind of weird, like the theme of the levels, I guess. But I'll get more into that into the actual review. Yeah, I do remember looking at the screenshots and all, and thinking that this was going to be my Sonic game. So here's that Socket game. Again, kind of a Sonic clone. It's good. I mean, if you're checking out the Sega Genesis's library of games, I'd definitely recommend this one. Then Ariel the Acrobat. Yeah, I should give this game another shot at some point, see what it's all about. But then there's Dash and Desperados game. So it looks like it was a fun two-player game. And this Lethal Enforcers game, which, again, from what it sounds like, even for being using digitized characters and all that, wasn't a half bad Lycan game, though. I miss Lycan games. There's some pretty cool stuff that are coming out nowadays. Where I think one of them is called like a retro shooter. It's like because basically back then the guns that like the light guns we would use depended on the like CRT TV technology for it to be able to register the shot. I guess you can say on the screen. Where that doesn't work like on a modern TVs. But now my understanding of some of these retro shooters that have like in games that have been coming out or devices is that it has like these sensors that you place on your TV somehow. So I'm assuming kind of like the way the Wii worked and lets you play them that way somehow is my understanding of it. I've been tempted to get one of those there and all, but they're a little pricey, and I would have to try to do more research on how exactly those work because I do miss like on games. I used to have a lot of fun with them. But Disney's Aladdin for the Sega Genesis, though. So you've been hearing about Disney Sega Virgin's Aladdin on the Genesis for months now, and the anticipation keeps growing. Never before in the history of video games has such a dedicated attempt been made to bring home this level of quality when creating a game based for a movie license. Aladdin recreates the action and animated beauty of Agrabah with beautiful animation and detail that has no equal. The artists at Disney and Virgin have outdone themselves with this game. From the Agrabah market through the Cave of Wonders and beyond, Aladdin is an absolute masterpiece and a joy to play. Everything that made the movie spectacular is present in this game. Abu Jafar, Princess Jasmine, the genie, and Aladdin's magic carpet are all instrumental in gameplay and help contribute to the quality of Aladdin. With 12 plus levels of action, you'll not only conquer Jafar's forces easily, um, they, with 12 plus levels of action, you will not conquer Jafar's forces easily. David Perry and the global team, who were primarily responsible for the graphics and game engine in Aladdin, have taken action platforming gaming to a higher level. In fact, from what we've seen, Aladdin so far, Aladdin borders on role playing in that you are playing this game, you feel like you are Aladdin, using cunning and skills to make it through the streets and dungeons of Baccarat. Part of this feel is accomplished through the excellent play mechanics and control. Controller response is quick and accurate, and you never feel like you are being beaten by sloppy play mechanics rather than the intricacies of the game. The release of Aladdin is quickly approaching. Expect to see the game on retailer shelves sometimes near the end of September. That is, if you get there quick enough. I suggest pre-booking. Thanks to the magicians at Disney and Virgin, the creativity of the movie is going to be ours to relive, and best of all, take part in the most successful animated movie of all time. Comes home to your Sega Genesis. Yeah, Aladdin. It's I enjoyed the cartoon back then, even to this day. I mean, it's a classic for sure. And as far as like animation goes and all, and the story to it is very simple but very inspiring, and all, and hits the right notes of combination of like having action, having a good hero, having a good villain, and good characters all around and all. And then, of course, brought to life even further by the great late Robin Williams with his take on the genie, which is absolutely hilarious. But it's not something that I would think like would be a good video game. Definitely a great animated movie, and it is. But yeah, Aladdin just really surprises because it ends up being one of the best games on the Sega Genesis. And I mean, you can see the screenshots here and all, right? They really captured the look of the movie. And again, the Super Nintendo one seems like it's a decent game, but this one here on the Genesis really nailed it, though. And again, it did definitely help that not only with David Perry and Shiny Entertainment developing the game, but also that they had some help from Disney animators too. Because really, when you're looking at the game in motion, it truly is stunning. I mean, Aladdin, the animation on him is really remarkable and all, and definitely on par with like what you see in the cartoon. But yeah, definitely a fun game, and one of the better games on the Sega Genesis for sure. But let's see. Zombies Ate My Neighbor, so the Genesis version. So we talked about this game already, so I don't want to spend too much time on it here. But yeah, I mean, not quite as good from what I can tell on the as the Super Nintendo one, but definitely, I mean, if you had the Genesis and all, not a bad game to play. I just never did play it on the Genesis. It wasn't a game that we really sought after. We rented it once on the Super Nintendo, but that's about the extent of it. But every time I play this game, I have a blast with it, and also definitely one that I want to try to beat at some point. And Stellar Fire, some kind of a Sega CD game. Not entirely sure. But then we got Sonic Spinball. I've tried a little bit about this game, and all the frame rate is what throws me off. It's just kind of weird playing a Sonic game that runs like at 24 frames per second or 30 frames or whatever it is. I don't know. It makes the game feel off and the speed feel off. So it's not a game that I really got into, but for some reason the pages are rotated in a different way. But Dragon's Lair, so on the Sega CD. So it looks like it was a decent enough port, just if you don't mind the grainy full motion video. Race Driving. I think it was called Hard Driving in the arcades. Yeah, just I don't know. This game, I mean, it was innovative for being one of the more few first polygonal racing games, but the technology just wasn't quite there, right, for it to run smooth, and didn't make for a great fun experience. But Street Fighter 2, so the Sega Genesis. Again, here's the review of it. I mean, it looks pretty good. Very much comparable to the Super Nintendo one, right? Again, the colors aren't quite as good as that one there, but very solid port though. And like I said, in many ways, I do prefer it over the Super Nintendo one. But let's see. In my opinion, this is the best Street Fighter yet for a home console. The detail, color, and smooth line scrolls are incredible. You're not going to believe this is a Genesis game. Special Edition features a tournament and elimination mode, super fast gameplay with 10 speed settings built in, an excellent sound for a Genesis card. But what is best about this version of Street Fighter is definitely the ease of execution. The moves just pop out with the 6-button Sega controller. You'll find yourself doing combos with ease and having more fun with Street Fighter 2 than ever before. Capcom has done it again. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, it's a great fighting game for the Sega Genesis. Probably the best one. Well, that or Super Street Fighter 2, right? But H3 Thunderstrike. So I already talked about this game, but let's read the full little blurb that they got here about it. How would you like to play a combat game with Desert Strike in 3D? Well, now thanks to Core and JVC, you can, and it's a blast. In H3 Thunderstrike for the Sega CD, in this super long aerial shooter, you will receive over 40 missions, including search and destroy, rescue, and ground and sea and air assaults. The 3D person perspective is excellent with ultra smooth scaling, digitized enemy crafts, and weaponry and explosions that keep on smoking long after the target is annihilated. Your attack chopper can throttle up and down, hover and fly, or brush the surface, taking out artillery and vehicles on the ground. It is all very colorful, with the backgrounds varying from jungle to desert to sea and so on. Fun and controls perfectly. Your arsenal includes a limited stock of missiles and an unlimited supply of machine gun rounds. I found it wise to stick to your guns and save your missiles for the larger targets like tanks and other crafts. Displayed on your control panel is a gauge that lets you know your condition, and a radar to help you find your targets, then escape the area. The music and sound effects are excellent, displaying true CD quality, and between rounds you get a nice little show as you receive your next mission. And as I said before, the game is very long. Games like this are the reason I bought a CD-ROM with scaling, digitized graphics, and excellent sound that can never be duplicated on a cartridge, and a sense of realism much needed to fully enjoy this sort of game, like the voice of your commander giving instructions and warning throughout your mission. With H3 Thunderstrike, Core's fifth CD title, they continue to show a high level of dedication to the Sega CD platform, and further ensures us of a great future with our good future with our Sega CDs. Yeah, Core was really. I mean, they had a lot of great games, right? Because they had for the Sega CD, because they had let's see, so they had Wonder Dog, but then they also had like this the Chuck Rock games and the Son of Chuck 2. I mean, they got Sega CD ports, not much different from the Genesis versions, my understanding, but still they were good ports. That Jaguar game was fairly impressive for like a racing game too. So they were trying, right, and there was still a few more that came out eventually afterward. So they were giving it their all, right, to try to help the Sega CD succeed. Yeah, this was a cool experience though back then. Wiz and Liz, some kind of 2-player game from Psygnosis. I don't really recall much of that game. RoboCop 3 from Flying Edge. What I recall, Flying Edge had a bit of a reputation for not making the greatest of games. Not sure to what quality this game was here. But here's this haunting game. Yeah, I might try to play this game at some point. Oh, Strider returns. I don't think so. At least I haven't seen him. After 1 year of waiting, this poor example of a game is certainly not what I expected. I mean, this is Strider, one of the best characters ever, and here he is moving like a turtle against the black background. Yuck. Save that original, folks, because this, my friend, bears no resemblance. To start with, Strider himself has about half the animation, and when he grapples on trees, the collision detection is so far off that he ends up grabbing air a good quarter inch above the limb. Then there's the enemies. In an effort to duplicate the original, they have successfully come up with these funny-looking trash can things that move like snails and explode like duds on the 4th of July. The whole thing is just ultra slow and boring. About the only good thing is the voice. Beyond that, the fact that you can return it looms large. If they won't let you, you've got yourself one heck of a doorstop, as the curvature of the cartridge grips the bottom of most doors firmly. Just give it a nice kick. Bottom line, okay, Flashback was a great game, and the Incredible Hulk looks just that incredible. The fault here lies on the programmers who might now want to consider a job in the food in this service industry. I said, no cheese on that, bonehead. Hey, aren't you the guy who made Strider 2? That's funny. Yeah, just it's such a horrible game. Again, this is one of my first biggest disappointments in my gaming history because we still rented it. We were already looking at the bad reviews, but I was like, but it's Strider, maybe we'll like it. Oh no, God, this game is horrible, and it's a very unfinished, polished game, unpolished game, just a horrendous mess. Um, and yeah, just the Strider. I love Strider, the original one, so much, and then the original Strider on the Sega Genesis was such a good port too. Yeah, just a horrible, horrible game. WF Royal Rumble wrestling game. Well, actually, I guess Flying Edge. Maybe they had some good wrestling games. I'm not sure, but was it this one? I don't know. It was like a wrestling game that was pretty well received back in the day. I don't quite recall which one it was. But Sega preview stuff. So here we're looking at Double Battletoads and Double Dragon. Never did play that one. So Dracula on the Sega CD. Again, back then I was really impressed with the graphics on it. Let's see. Eternal Champion. So Sega was making a big deal about this one here. So Sega's much anticipated 24 meg one-on-one fighter Eternal Champions gets a full workout in next month's Sega Sector. Pictured here are Shadow Yamato and Larson Tyler, two of Sega's original new characters. Eternal Champions. The one on the Genesis, I think we rented it, and I didn't think too highly of it. The control, I mean, it's definitely controls different than say like Street Fighter because it has the same button layout where you have 3 punch buttons and 3 kick buttons. But just the movement of the character, how you pull off the special moves and all that, it felt different, and it's definitely not as smooth as like Street Fighter 2. So I don't know where Sega got around thinking that this would be like a Street Fighter 2 killer. But the one on the Sega CD, though, that one improved on some things. And I mean, ultimately, the base game is still there, but it improved on enough things and all where I was like, okay, I can appreciate this game. But the one on the Sega Genesis, though, I didn't think too highly of it. But Joe and Max, it looks like it's getting the Genesis port. So this is an older Super Nintendo game. And from what I recall, Takara did a pretty good job of translating this game to the Genesis. So again, Takara doing really good ports, right? Not just from Neo Geo games, right? But also apparently from other consoles too. Splatterhouse. Talked about that game the other day. So here's this Cyborg game here. It was on the Sega CD, but only on Japan. So that, I mean, nowadays, right, and all, I mean, however you choose to go about it, there's also some games that you can check out on the Sega CD that were in Japan only. And so, like, for example, here's one of them. Because I talked about that Illusion City 2 game a few episodes back where it was kind of like a Blade Runner sort of cyberpunk sort of RPG. And then this one here, it might be worth checking out, if you're into trying to get imports. But here's that Mazine Saga game. That's a pretty cool game. And eStorm's import update. So Castlevania, right? So let's see. So Castlevania's vampire killer, known as Castlevania Bloodlines, is progressing well and looking as horrific as ever. Konami's commitment to quality Sega titles is impressive. They just keep coming. Bloodlines is etched in stone for November. And then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighter by Konami wasn't quite as good as the Super Nintendo version because it's a different game, and it's a one-on-one fighting game, but a different format and style and all, and wasn't as good as that one there, from my understanding. But I haven't played either one of them. Let's see, Mega CD, Might and Magic. So here's this Cotton game, which is pretty impressive. That it has like the scaling and all that it has for a Genesis card without using any kind of like trickery to my or like a chip of some sort. But more Phantasy Star 4. So these are the all-new battle scenes in Phantasy Star 4. These machine battles take place on the in the Landmaster, Flow Mover, or Ice Decker. I think they got the translations on that wrong, but PS4 is on schedule for a December release in Japan. Hopefully, we will see a US version at the Winter CES. Yeah, so Phantasy Star 4 was moving along. Let's see. Sega's Virtual Racing had crowds around it all day. The new DSP Racer displays 7,500 polygons per second, features all new viewpoints offered in the coin op, and is incredibly fast. I can't wait for this one. It looks absolutely awesome. Yeah, I mean, as far as a port for the Genesis, it's impressive. It's definitely impressive. Sega's Falcom's new action RPG Popple Mail features characters and animations that they claim can only be done by CD and 4 layers of multi-scrolling backgrounds. Kay says it looks fantastic. Yeah, I've always wanted to get into this game here. It looks like a fun little action RPG game, like a side-scrolling one, and I do want to give this game a go at some point. Let's see. I'm not sure what this is. Breath of Goddess. But then here's this McDonald's game by Treasure, which actually ends up being pretty good. Don't sleep on this game here. It's pretty good, actually, considering that it's a McDonald's game. But it was a game on the Sega CD. I remember trying to look forward to this game and all, because again, it was, I was trying to get as many RPGs as possible. This game, I have the Beholder on the Sega CD, and because I was going to say, I think it had music by Yuzo Koshiro, so yeah, I mean, might be worth trying to listen to the soundtrack of that game at some point. There's some pictures here from Sega's 31st Amusement Machine Show. So the commercials in Japan looks like they were a lot better than what we were getting here. And they have an interview with Treasure here. I might try to read this at some point. Yeah, because they have that excellent Gunstar Heroes. And for RoboCop 3, and Captain America, and the Avengers for the Super Nintendo. My understanding that the Genesis one was actually better. I guess it was just, I don't know, they put more emphasis on that one. But the Super Nintendo, so what are they up to? So they had the Super Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. And these games were pretty popular. They were pretty well done and all. Had fun gameplay, great graphics, music and sound effects that are very reminiscent of the movies. And yeah, very challenging though. I played a bit of the first one, but I'd be curious to really start getting into these games more. The Mode 7 effects that they had for some of the popular like Star Wars scenes, right? Like, the Death Star scenes, and then also like the Imperial, what are they called? Imperial Walkers things here. Looks like they put the Mode 7 to good use. And ActRaiser 2. This is a given. Everyone loved ActRaiser, and ever since the first time you played it, you have wanted a sequel. Now that time has come. ActRaiser 2 should be just weeks away by the time you read this. Here's what you can expect. Like part 1, Yuzo Koshiro is back for the musical score, except this time he's really gone overboard on the classical thing. The music is, of course, incredible, but definitely on the serious side. Yuzo is into drama. Graphically, ActRaiser 2 is beautiful with soft shaded colors, transparencies, and Mode 7 effects typical of Enix. Company obviously committed to quality. ActRaiser himself has been totally reworked with new angel-like wings, muscular definition, and a double jump to say the least. The new character is excellent. It just may take you a while to master all the moves, but once you do, you will thoroughly enjoy his new features. This new adventure is all action, serious action. The levels are huge and aren't at all linear. Most of the time, you will need to find your way out, and the tough enemies don't make that too easy. They are many. They are and they want you dead. Also impressive about the new the new bosses that are drawn incredibly and are all totally different. Each requiring certain strategies, no deja vu included. It is tough to get to each one, but as with the original, it is well worth all the wait. You will no doubt find yourself pounding away for hours as we did, desperate to see the next level. And each time you clear the last, it's way addicting. All of us remember those incredible early days of the Super Nintendo, ActRaiser, Ghouls and Ghosts, Castlevania, all the memories. ActRaiser 2 is a return to those glorious days. I hope more games of this caliber follow. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was looking at the screenshots and all, and it looks pretty amazing. Like this part right here, I remember this looks pretty. This always looked pretty cool. I never did get very far in the game. Like I said before, right out the game was pretty challenging, but it was definitely a Super Nintendo game back then that I was like, oh wow, that looks cool actually. Um, so yeah, I was kind of. You're pretty lucky that we had that friend that would bring a Super Nintendo over. Ariel the Acrobat on the Super Nintendo, again, more or less the same as the Genesis one. Um, Looks a bit more colorful though here on the Super Nintendo. The music, I would assume, is probably better. Asterisk. I think he's a popular character in France, I think. Not quite sure. Sunset Riders. An Inspector Gadget game. And Aladdin for the Super Nintendo. Daffy Duck. A lot of like licensed property games back then from like the Disney and Looney Tunes and all. A lot of them were pretty decent too. Let's see, but then the Ren and Stimpy game here. Yeah, Log. I remember that from the show. Dream TV. We're gonna have a puzzle game, I guess. And for previews here, so we have the Ocean's Jurassic Park game for the Super Nintendo, which is different than the Genesis side-scrolling game. This seems to be more of a top-down kind of shooting game of some sort. Sunsoft, though. So speaking of like Looney Tunes and all that, so they were making a Disney's or not Disney, Bugs Bunny's Rabbit Rampage, which I think, if I recall, that game ended up being pretty decent. So Battletoads and Double Dragon again here, but this time for the Super Nintendo. And Art of Fighting, which, yeah, I mean, apparently it was a decent port of the Neo Geo game, again developed by that Takara company. This page was already scanned in again. Well, it looks like, oh, it was missing this page though. So okay, whoever scanned it in, I guess, got a little mixed up there. But some other stuff here. So, huh, interesting. Just looking for stuff that like kind of stands out to me, but certainly you can pause and anything kind of catches your eye or things that you remember. Okay, but then Shadowrun advertisement, and Gamefan Sports. So Gamefan Sports really started expanding here. And so here they're talking about Super Nintendo's Madden 1994. So because I remember that the first initial Madden games on the Super Nintendo weren't that great, and they really are choppy. Because if you go back and play like the Genesis ones, they all scales pretty smooth, right? Like the scaling of the field and all as you're advancing forward and all. To put it for as an example, like when you kick off, right, at the very start, even if you go back to the very first Genesis one on Madden, it's pretty smooth. Like it's pretty impressive. On the Super Nintendo, it's really chuggy. It really chugs along, right, and all. So definitely, I could imagine it doesn't make for a good gameplay experience. I've never actually played that one and all, but just looking at videos of it and all, I was like, oh yeah, that doesn't look very appealing. But apparently, this one here, though, seems like where they were finally getting it right on the Super Nintendo, which is cool, and all, and because definitely the Nintendo could have used some good football games back then. Because this is one area where Sega mostly dominated in was in sports, right? I mean, Super Nintendo had some good sports games and all. It's just that the Genesis sports games, it just seemed to have just better options, and they just played better. And Madden was probably one of the biggest examples. But again, right, it looks like this is where Super Nintendo started catching up, though. Then we got Joe Montana's football, though, so they were using the Joe Montana license. And again, those Joe Montana games on the Sega Genesis are not that bad. They're pretty good. They're definitely a good alternative to the Madden games. But this one on the Sega CD, yeah, I've tried playing it before and wasn't too impressed. I mean, I guess the graphics with the scaling and all that would have been impressive back then, but not the best playing football game, though. So we have a baseball game here. Advertisements for Bill Watch College Football, which those games were great too. Play more or less like the Madden games, just with the college football license. This Tecmo Bowl, yeah, Super Tecmo Bowl. Yeah, these games are fun. If you want more of an arcadey kind of fast-paced, less realistic football game, Tecmo Bowl games are hella fun. And then here we're talking about the Madden 94, but on the Genesis. I like this. The Ultimate 16-bit. Remember, 3DO is coming. Madden game is coming to the Genesis. So, people are getting excited about the 3DO and all. But yeah, so I've actually been kind of playing this one here for this football season. Sometimes I'll try to have like some kind of a football game that I'm playing like on Sundays and all, right, just to follow along with the NFL season. And this is the one that I've been playing through recently. Yeah, it's yeah, I mean they play great. World Soccer. This is for the Super Nintendo, I'm assuming. Sports Illustrated Football. So again, tons of different football games and all that, right? A lot of people had licenses for it, but none of them could ever match like Madden or even the Joe Montana ones on the Genesis. It looks like they were trying to do a baseball game too, also. Here's a tennis game, Wimbledon. NHL Hockey 94. This was like the really popular one. So unbelievable. How does EA Sports do it? The NHLPA 93 was earth-shattering when it came out a year ago. Now with the release of NHL Hockey 94, EA Sports has redefined the hockey standard again. Here's what's new: more lifelike and highly animated players, smoother gameplay, pre-game info, and who's hot, who needs to be benched. User scores up to 7 different names can be stopped. The 2 new expansion clubs, Florida and Anaheim. Nothing against them. Nothing like the Mighty Ducks logo. You say you want more goodies? Okay, how about reverse angle play? Of course. Player cards complete with digitized photos and stats? You bet. A more mobile goalie? These guys could be mistaken for Peggy Fleming. How about some hats on the ice after Kisio or Lemieux score a hat trick? No problem. You got more than one friend? Bring them over. up to 4 can play simultaneously. Did I mention penalty shots? As they say, it's in the game. The list of what's new goes on and on, but what really counts is that it's all together to perfection. The passing's so quick, your eyes could get stuck trying to keep up. The checking so brutal that I've left many game bruised and battered. Teeth in hand. Just wait till you knock some poor guy unsuspecting sap into the benches or penalty box. There's no fighting or blood in 94, but you won't miss it. The goaltending, save 3 or 4 in a row, your guy slaps himself in the head as it says, "Come on, chumps, bring it on." Of course, if you get scored on, the goalie pounds a stick into the ice. NHL 94 is hands down the best sports simulation I have ever played, and I live for them. Don't waste another minute. Lace up the blades and get at it. Yeah, a really fun game. I remember having a blast with. I don't know if it was this one, but one of the NHL games, and they really are fun. Definitely one of the better. I mean, this game here has a reputation, the '94, for being probably one of the best 16-bit sports games of all time. It's definitely fun, even if you're not really into hockey. It's just a fun game to play. You'll have fun with it. Highly recommend it for any retro gamer that has any kind of a passing interest in sports. And speaking of, this is a racing game that I would recommend to people seeking out retro games if you've never played it before. So F1 Formula Racing. So it was developed by this company called Domark, I believe, and I think I've touched a little bit on the previous episodes. But yeah, one of my favorite games of this generation, racing games of this generation. So the video game industry is in the middle of a technological explosion, with 3DO, Jaguar, Saturn, Nintendo Someday Machine, etc., all due out in the next year. The industry's focus has turned towards the future and 32-bit gaming. In the meantime, developers like Domark are trying to pull everything they can from the 16-bit machines and stretch them to their limits, hopefully pushing the impending evolution back a few steps, and in the meantime, giving us great games that until a few years ago we wouldn't have ever dreamed about playing on a home system. F1 World Championship is one of those games. While Nintendo is flirting with polygonal technology in Star Fox, Domark takes the shaded primitives and moves them at incredible speeds to create the fastest driving game ever on a home system. It isn't just the technological advances that make F1 a winner. The game has great control and gives you the sensation of being behind the wheel of your vehicle and overtaking the competitors. No home racing game to date has felt so real, and I doubt that any 16-bit racing game in the future will ever be able to beat the sense of virtual reality found in F1 World Championship. This is the first racing game where when the speedometer says 100 miles per hour, you actually feel it like you're traveling at that speed, not crawling along with some pathetic squash sprite lurching towards you. The gameplay features a lot of tracks and wheel customization utilities that you have come to expect from F1 simulations. And if screaming speed in the standard mode is not enough a challenge or of a challenge for you, F1 also features a turbo mode that almost doubles the speed of the game at the sacrifice of some graphic detail. This mode is almost too fast. You will find yourself struggling to come to grips with the control of your vehicle, and you'll be hitting every piece of steel on the track. Racing fans are going to get a lot to love with F1 World Championship. Domark has simply produced a 16-bit racing game with no peer. Sit down, relax, and hit the accelerator. Your Genesis has always wanted to be driven like this. Yeah, great game. Really fast, awesome racing game. And I remember trying that turbo mode, and it is just blazingly fast, and just a little too hard to control, but still kind of fun, though. Just kind of a game that came out of nowhere, it seemed like, but just very fun, though. So it looks like they have an interview here with Andre Agassi, who, back in the day, he was a really popular tennis player. So advertisement for Tecmo Super Bowl, this time also on the Sega Genesis. And so they have a shooter special section here. So here we're talking about Sylphid. Great, just an amazing shooter here. We already talked about it. Just, yeah, absolutely awesome. And Star Fox, which, in its own right, really cool too also. Definitely, they were flirting around with the idea of, using polygons and shooters and all, right, which would eventually become the norm. Here, Supernova. What is this? I would assume on the Super Nintendo. Sometimes you can just tell by. Yep. Okay, Super Nintendo. Just tell by like the screenshots and all. They just. This was back in the day where the graphics, you can tell what game a system was on just looking at the graphics. Steel Empire. So this is on the Genesis. I never did play this one, but it seemed like it was an okay game. Has more of a almost like a World War One theme, like a steampunk sort of setting. Biohazard Battle. So this game tends to come on a lot of like Sega Genesis compilations, but I've never actually played it though. I guess I'm not sure, but it seems to be decent. Maybe I'll check it out. Axel A. I played this one a bit, and yeah, this is a really cool Super Nintendo shooter. Kind of goes from like a vertical shooting perspective with cool mode 7 effects, and then a side-scrolling shooter sections. Yeah, pretty cool game. Macross based on the anime. Seems like it's okay. This is on the Super Nintendo. And the best of the best shoot 'em up of all time, Lightning Force. There are shooters, and then there are shooters. Here is where you will find Technosoft's Thunder Force 4, known here as Lightning Force, or Lightning Force for some reason. The best side-scroller shooter ever created for the Genesis. Send the kiddies to bed. This is a man's game. Thunder Force 4 attacks you with its seemingly alive bosses and spectacular heavy metal / techno soundtrack. The levels are huge, stretching as high as 4 screens, with layer upon layers of scrolls on both top and bottom, and huge enemy ships often filling the screens. But the fun doesn't stop there. You don't get dweeby little waves of pebble-sized sprites in Thunder Force 4. You get huge, pissed-off, mechanized beasts that animate wildly and are drawn with the detail to perfection. And if you've come forward to the graphics, you were right. These are among the best ever displayed in 16-bit shooter. If you're into shooters and you haven't experienced Thunder Force 4, go and find one and experience the magic of Technosoft. Absolutely, yes. Thunder Force or Lightning Force or Thunder Force 4, however you want to call it. It's my favorite shoot 'em up of all time, and it's just an absolutely amazing game and one of my favorite games of all time. And yeah, just amazing. Musha, which I've played a little bit recently. This is yeah. So far, I've enjoyed the shooter. It's a pretty cool little shooter. Last Resort from Neo Geo. It seems like this is one of the more popular ones on there. R-Type 3 on the Super Nintendo. And then they just kind of give a list here of other recommended shooters. So they gave the best shooter here to Sylphied. So Sylphied, Star Fox, Biohazard, Axel A, Thunder Force 4, and Last Resort, and to an extent, Musha seem to be the ones that were more highly rated. Rolling Thunder 3 is a great game. I kind of recently started playing Rolling Thunder 2. And then portable, we're talking here about Sonic Chaos. Game on the Game Gear for Sonic games. It looks like we have Wolfchild game to the Game Gear also. And looks like Ren and Stimpy also. Time Slip, I think is what this game is called. And here we go to the Neo Geo section. So it looks like we're having a little kind of a moves guide here for Samurai Showdown, which is definitely a classic on this system. Samurai Showdown seems to have taken the world of fighting games by storm. Everybody is talking about it, and rightly so. It's 118 megs of explosive power with 12 new original characters that only a mother could love and truly belongs among the fighting elite. Showdown combines some of the best character animations and artwork ever with phenomenal zooming backgrounds and effects like color cycling skies and crashing wave. This is more than a game, it's a spectacle. Add to that perfect control and playability, and you've got the year's best fighting game so far. P.S. To all you Neo Geo's owners, I am so angered by censorship of the home version that I don't ever want to talk about it. Let's hope it never happens again. Back then, just like now, censorship was kind of a hot topic. But here's the Jaguar, so they're starting to show off some things on this. And so, again, go back to, so this would have been what, August, September of 1993, give or take? Try to picture yourself back in that time frame if you weren't around from back then. And, the 16-bit was still in high gear, right? So we hadn't heard about much, or we haven't given too much information about Sony's PlayStation or Nintendo 64 or Sega Saturn, right? The more prominent systems of that fifth generation. So this is what you're seeing, right, on what the future holds. And again, if you've been looking at the screenshots and all, obviously you've already been seeing kind of like what graphics are capable of up to this point on the current generation of systems at this time. But then you're seeing things like this, right? Now, I remember looking at things like this right here, and I was like, well, that looks kind of bland. But then I remember looking at this. And again, all you got is to go off of is a screenshot. And so I'm looking at that, I'm like, oh my God, that looks hyper detailed. And if that's 3D and if it runs smooth and all, that looks amazing. And, it was definitely something that we were starting to get excited for, right? For what this generation was going to bring. Trying to read here. Let's see. So, um, okay, so here we go. So the Jaguar 64-bit RISC wrist or RASC based 16 million color palette console. The heart of the system is a 64-bit processor Atari designed themselves at their Cambridge research facility. This chip works in tandem with a DSP, which enables the system to create fast texture maps and render and manipulate 3D polygons in real time. It has 4 times the processing power of the Super Nintendo or Genesis, and is even more powerful than the 3DO. The Jaguar was actually in development alongside the 32-bit Panther, but it progressed so rapidly that Atari decided to devote all their attention to the bigger beast, and here it is. That Jaguar will also have a CD drive ready to go by mid-1994 that will run double the speed, enabling it to run codec, photo CDs, DAT units, and modems through its 32-bit expansion port. So the Jaguar flopped. It did not do very well. It's one of the biggest flops in video game history. But again, at the time when you're reading these things and all, it's like, oh wow, and all. And Atari had a bit of a name already. Granted, they had already phased out a bit in the fourth generation, but people still knew Atari, so there was a bit of excitement right initially at first, anyways, for it. There's tons of documentaries out there that you can see on what happened. But with the Jaguar, but at this time, and I'm looking at screenshots like this, and I was like, yeah, things look kind of real. It looks really impressive. When you go back to these games and all, it looks very basic and all, which I much prefer, like the polygonal graphics. I'll say something like Lightning Force, but at the time, right, and all, it looked pretty impressive in the screenshots. But Alien vs. Predator was a game that I do recall being kind of excited for. So let's see. So Alien vs. Predator is based on the two 20th Century Fox feature film blockbusters. What would happen if the alien, the Predator, and a colonial marine corporal were put together? Who would win? You select who you will portray, and the qualities of each possesses is incorporated into your strategy. For instance, if you were the alien, you could climb walls as a predator. Your night vision is superior, and as the marine corporal, you might be able to outwit the other with your computer skills. Placed in realistic texture map corridors, your movement is put in real-time action. Camera speeds race as you're being chased down the hallways with a high frame rate. Exceptional colors and shadow effects put you right in the action. Yeah, I mean, again, I just remember just looking at this and all thinking like, wow, that looks amazing. And then you get games like Raiden, which, they look all right. Like this looked, I was like, well, that looks kind of bland, but this looks cool. This looks cool. And then we got the 3DO here, right? We're talking about Crash and Burn. So this ended up being a launch. It was a packing game, I believe, on the 3DO. And yeah, I mean, it was just blowing my mind, right, and all on what these games could look like. I've been wanting to check this game out just for the purpose of like, that I could check this game out really for, I don't know, just to say like, hey, I played the pack-in title for the 3DO, but I can never get this game to run on an emulator for some reason. John Madden Football. So again, I remember looking at the screenshots on this, and I was like, "Wow, that looks cool." Looking at a Star Trek game, I think. Hmm. Welcome to the first installment of Pioneer's Laser Active video game system. Oh, I kind of remember this. I think like it could play the Sega C or the Mega Drive and the Mega Drive CD games or something like this. Pyramid Patrol. What is it? I kind of remember this, but let me see. Here it is, the first Sega game for the Do Everything Mega LED or LD, the all-in-one Laserdisc player from Pioneer. When outfitted completely, this honker will play Mega CDs, Mega Drive cards, PC Engine CDs, PC Engine Hue cards, Kodak Photo CDs, CDGs, Audio CDs, Sega Laser Active games, PC Engine Laser Active games, and of course Laserdisc. All this will cost you a whopping $1,900. So let's break that down to see it for what it's worth. Mega CD is $230. Mega Drive $89 or $90, basically. A PC Engine $400, and a good quality Laserdisc player $900. Altogether, that's $1,519. So that means you're paying roughly $480 to play these laser active titles. They better be good. Basically, what they have done here is provide an awesome 3D backdrop courtesy of the Laserdisc player and slap the Sega cartridge shooter on top of it, driven by the added Sega hardware. Now, this can be good or bad, and in this case, I'd have to say it's bad. You see, the shooter by Tato that they have placed in the background is a real dog with redrawn sprites, chunky ones, I might add, coming at you wave after wave, and El Chipola sound effects from the deepest depths of the Z80 sound chip, which we all know is capable of good explosion sound effects. Why they chose this nauseating static sound when the hardware isn't even being taxed will forever remain a mystery. Problem number two, you can't hit anything in the background, and they've added zero collection detection, so you're left flying through a movie with no sense of interaction, thus making the term laser active kind of a joke. Perhaps that's what the system does best, yet to be seen. Games like Space Ace or Dragon's Lair would no doubt be awesome, but no games of this type would have been announced at this time. So for now, I'd have to say you'd be better off saving your money for Jaguar 3DO systems that can produce graphics of this quality along with great gameplay. But if you're in the market for a Laserdisc player anyways and don't already have a Sega or PC Engine CD, then you might want to, geez, I can't even read that just because of this right here. But yeah, basically, very expensive piece of hardware at the time. I mean, even now, God, that'd be a hell of expensive. Um, that would have been for a highly niche audience back then. I mean, in concept, it sounds cool, but yeah, that's expensive. And ultimately, it must have flopped because I really haven't really heard much about it. But here's the FM Towns Marty. So here's screenshots here of the game Shadow of the Beast 2, or Beast 2 as it's just being called here, apparently. Some advertisements from the graveyard. Ah, how funny! How funny! Um, so I've been, if you've been following at all along with what I've been doing on my YouTube channel and all, so I'll do like this, where I'll pick a game and where I'll basically I just have like an Excel sheet where I keep adding games to this list just as I come across them after, and I've been doing this for years now, right? And where I've just been building a list of games that I've owned, that I've happened to come across emulation, and just keep adding to them. And so what I've been doing now is that I'll use like a number generator, and then I'll pick a number, and then whatever number it picks, I'll select a game from my list that matches that number. And that's how so like if you see my YouTube shorts and you're like, okay, how are these games being picked? That's basically it. That's all I do. And really, I'm just using that section there for shorts just to sort of like give a bit of a virtual library of games, right? So you can see them with a quick little synopsis or little mini review or whatever the hell I want to talk about that game in that moment. And so I just write like a short little script for it and all, and that's basically it, right? That's really what I'm trying to do with the shorts. It's just like a quick little virtual library of a video game collection. Because my goal is that I want to do one at least, hopefully once a day. And as the days, weeks, and years go on, someone can come back there and say, "Oh wow, look at all these." Just like a quick video of like games from like all different generations, different systems, and all that. The reason I say all that is because so usually what I'll do, I'll pick so when I do my weekly podcast on Sundays, I'll pick three games for that I talk about at that time, and then I'll pick. So out of those three games, I'll do them on a Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and then for the rest of the days of the week, I'll pick them just on my own, and then so I can get ready to like try to capture some quick video footage, and then also write a quick little script for them. Well, the game that I have planned for tomorrow is this one right here, 1941 Counter Strike or Counter Attack. It's such an odd game, or not an odd game, but like a rare game, right? On a even more rare system, probably. And so it's just kind of funny that I literally just worked on the script on this morning, and here it is here in the graveyard section on this magazine. Anyways, little behind the scenes of what I'm doing with my stupid little channel here. Um, but 1941 Counterattack. So we dug deep this month and exhumed a really crusty one. It's 1941 from NEC's short-lived Super Graphics. Arcade shooter fans know this game well for its awesome soundtrack and unique play mechanics. Your plane can spin against walls and clamp up some truly wicked power options. The CG version is virtually identical to the arcades, with the exception of the sound, which is good quality, but a bit pingy due to the Super Graphics inferior sound chip. Due to the system's short lifespan, only 6 games were produced. Aldine, still one of the best shooters ever. Grand Zort, an amazing game for its time. Ghouls and Ghosts, which is identical to the Coin-Op. Battle Ace, a first-person 3D shooter. Darius Plus, which is identical to the CD Super Darius in 1941. All of these titles were 8 meg, with the exception of Darius Plus, which was 6. If you're into collecting video game memorabilia, you might want to search around for a used Super Graphics. It's worth it just for these few games. Um, otherwise, you saw it here in the graveyard, so now you know the NEC or the NEC or what NEC passed on back in 1989. If they would have brought this system to the States back then, who knows? They might have been a lot better off today. Yeah. Okay, so it was 6 games. So yeah, so 5 main games, and then one of them, which was the Darius Plus. So okay, all right, that makes sense. Which was already on the CD-ROM thing. But, okay. Then here, innovation looks like just some different kind of like accessories and quarter crunchers. So yeah, did anybody know there was a Sonic game in the arcades? Here you go. This is what it was. I never played it, but I remember hearing about that game back then. And here's where we were getting a glimpse of Namco's Ridge Racer in the arcades, and Daytona USA also. Oh wow, looks like this early on we were seeing it. That's cool. Sega Star Wars basketball game. This Sega's Alien light shooter game. I always wanted to play this game. It looks like that would have been a lot of fun with the light gun. And Virtual Fighter. No, so we were starting to see this stuff this early on, huh? So let's see. So the most incredible game was Sega's Virtual Fighters, based on Virtual Racing's advanced 32-bit architecture. This game scales, rotates, and moves like no other fighting game I have ever seen. The game is based on real fighting techniques, and the response time has to be experienced to be believed. Virtual Fighters should be arriving this fall, just in time to give Super Street Fighter 2 a run for its money. Yeah. And that's the thing about Virtual Fighter, right? And all because it was in 3D, and usually 3D games, it was like cool to see at first, right? But the controls just weren't quite there. When you play Virtual Fighters for the first time, it's like, okay, even the first one, right? I mean, it's pretty basic by today's standards, but it feels right. Like the controls feel responsive and all. Then they only, you know, polished it up even as the future entries went on. But this is where again 3D graphics were starting to button up the gameplay on it. But speaking of Super Street Fighter 2, here we go. So this looks like this is the first look here at this game. So we got the new characters, so Cammy, Fei Long, DJ, and T-Hawk. And it's crazy, right? And all just how many different variations of Street Fighter we were getting when it first came out in the arcades in 1991. And we're just barely in, late 1993, but we've already had many versions of it already. And this one was going to be the biggest upgrade to it, right? And as we saw new moves for the characters and then 4 new characters. And then some of the, like the character portraits and all were improved and all that. But yeah, this is a cool version of Street Fighter 2. Probably my favorite one. But yeah, the backgrounds were changed. The character sprites mostly stayed the same, I think, just with some new animations. But the backgrounds were changed and the character portraits were changed. Some of the UI was changed. Um, yeah, the Super Street Fighter 2. I mean, I would say Turbo, but that game it didn't really get ported too much like home consoles. It did get a 3DO port, which seems to be pretty decent, but it didn't come out for like the 16-bit games. But the arcade version of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which you can get like on the Street Fighter 2 Anniversary Collection, it's ridiculously hard. And from what I've read, is that version there, for some reason the way it was just the way it was programmed. It's just ridiculously hard, even on the easiest setting. But anyways, we'll talk more about that game later. But yeah, for right now, we're at the first version of Super Street Fighter 2. And yeah, this one Street Fighter 2 was just making all kinds of names for itself during this time frame. And here we go with the other stuff section. So again, I'll just kind of leave it here. I'm just going to sort of look at stuff here as let's see. So in Nintendo news, so the announcement of their new 64-bit machine is now around the world, and many people think it's another smokescreen. But we here at GameFan have very close contacts at Nintendo, and know, in fact, that this is no vaporware. First of all, no hardware specs, which are still not final, are incredible. The working name of the system is Project Reality. Guess they've given a guess they've kind of given themselves a reputation around the big end, huh? The main processor is a true R4000 64-bit RISC processor, the same CPU used in current SGI machines, which will run at a clock speed of over 100 megahertz, possibly as fast as 100 megahertz if Nintendo decides to make use of the new generation R4400 CPU. This new Nintendo product, created and designed by Silicon Graphics, also has real-time 3D graphics, 128-bit system bus, 24-bit color, high-resolution sound, and CD-quality audio. This does not mean that the system is cartridge-based. What we hear is that the machine is CD-based and will not be cartridge compatible. Also, the system can process and manipulate 100,000 polygons per second. Games like Galaxian, Daytona 500, and Sega's new fighting game Virtua Fighter could all be done perfectly on the Nintendo machine with no loss in color or any graphical differences. In addition, the machine can process 100 MIPS, millions of instructions per second. As a means of comparison, Atari's Jaguar, the current speed demon, processes 55 MIPS. Project Reality can also do real-time anti-alias texture mapping for very realistic graphic images. In fact, the movie Jurassic Park was designed using CGI systems, so it is not out of the realm of possibility to see graphic quality similar to the movie. Project Reality in high-res mode can project imagery at a resolution of about 1024 by 1024. This means that Project Reality will be compatible with high definition TVs, which will also be compatible with NTSC, though the current American broadcast standard. Our sources at Nintendo say that PR specs might even be better than what when they show it next year at AOMEA show in Japan. If you're wondering why Nintendo is showing Project Reality at an arcade show and not a CES, this is because Nintendo wants to enter that arcade market again and then release the home version at the end of 1995 for about $200. The first coin-op games will be from Konami, Williams, and Capcom. Could you imagine Capcom doing Street Fighter or virtual reality in the arcades and then being able to play the exact game at a home for lower than for as low as $50? I know I can now. If I could have just waited until 1995. Yeah, not quite. It wasn't quite that powerful. But again, we're just going up whatever information that they were being able to provide at that time. And let's see. And then they're talking about the Iron Man here, which is saying so that it is NEC's answer to the Atari 64-bit Jaguar, Sega's 32-bit Saturn, and the 32-bit 3DO. This system, I don't know a whole lot about it. They kind of talk a little bit about it in the feature magazines and all, but ultimately it was only in Japan, and it was very limited to anime style games of like I don't know. Actually, honestly, I don't know too much about it. I just know there was a lot of anime style games on it and all. And what I mean by that is that not necessarily just the theme of the game, but then also it was just more I think point and click games and all, and it could do really good animation and video, but it wasn't really good at doing just your regular games, right? It didn't really have much 3D capabilities and all was my understanding. But I could be wrong, but I'm sure they'll talk about it later. And so here's it showing up Outrunners here and all. Kind of a virtual reality thing. So they were doing some pretty cool stuff back then, right? And the Postmeister section. Mm. How much could you get, if you were selling your games? It's kind of interesting to see. We send us your old cartridges, receive a check, or purchase towards titles of your choice. Prices are good until the 30th of October of 1993. For Krusty's Funhouse, you can get $14 for it. It was just interesting sometimes seeing the prices of games back then and all, what they would sell for and what they would buy them back for. But yeah, I think we're getting towards the end here of this issue here. And we end with Roboleste Day or Robolese or however you pronounce it. But yeah, so interesting issue there. Oh my god, that last stretch there, I don't know how that all came out. I was my daughter had come in, so just got her something to eat and all that, and I put the microphone in my pocket because she took it off of where I have it clipped on right now in my shirt, and I had it in my pocket around. So the whole time I'm talking, and so that last several minutes there, I don't know how that came out, but you know what? I'm doing it ghetto, old school, no much editing or anything. Kind of the point of my channel is that I'm just really doing this just off the cuff without too much time in editing and all that because I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time with that kind of stuff. I don't have the whole time to dedicate to something like this. Basically, what I do is I just shoot the video, talk, and just little minor editing that I do and put it up on YouTube. And that's basically it. It's really all the time that I have for to try to do one that I want to dedicate to this here. So, hopefully at least you can read the information that was on there on the screen for the last 5 or so minutes on it and all. Because it sound probably, if it didn't come out, it's probably going to sound. Speaking of which, super muffled there. But yeah, that's what this channel's all about here. Just um, kind of just a regular dude just trying to film stuff on a camera here with very basic equipment. But at the very least, again, right, the purpose of my channel here, and also I'll just reiterate a bit, is just to sort of have like a bit of a visual guide and all of just gaming in general, right? So, for example, here with like these, as I'm going over the Game Fan magazines here and all, and so then trying to get the information of what it was as how it was presented back then in those days, as sort of just a bit of a museum of video games, I guess is what I want my channel to be. But yeah, anyways, hopefully, aside from that complete fumble there at the end, you got some information on this. And so I will try to get the next one out within a week, hopefully. I've been having a lot of fun going back through these old Game Fan issues, and this is for me just a fun way to experience them. But yeah, hopefully I'll get one out within the next week. But until then, have a great one.